I really kept noticing a gap. Brand strong agencies couldn't ship websites fast. Meanwhile, dev strong agencies ship sites really quickly, but they looked quite junior or juvenile. I could compress design to live timeline from like 6 months to 6 weeks without giving up anything in the craft. AI is about to take a wrecking ball to all of that. Agencies still selling those bloated hours and stuff are going to feel the crunch first.
Okay, Ben. So Shrink Studio's website declares that development is bloated nowadays. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting one. Back in 2022, when I started this studio, something I saw and something that I still see now is that B2B companies at their growth stage are getting agency relationships that don't fit the moment that they're actually in. They're either developing stuff that's too slow for a team that's just raised, they're too generic for a product that needs precise precisioning, too dependent actually to hand over and run, things like maintenance contracts that don't harbor any value, stuff like that. I think bloated is really a symptom of all of that traditional agency ways of working. I just found that I was sat in a meeting one day at an agency that I was working for, and I just thought, wow, this is really bloated. What if we could shrink this? So that was where the name came from. Yeah, quite a funny moment. I went home and it was all I could think about. But yeah, you're looking at like 6-figure custom builds, 6-month timelines, stacks marketing teams can't touch without filing a ticket with engineering teams, headless setups for content that's basically 20 pages in a blog. You don't need that. Custom React front ends because someone on the engineering team thought Webflow was for designers. And now, marketing leads can't change hero headings without a sprint planning meeting. So that's where I have seen there's a huge gap. When a Series A team has 18 months of runway, taking 6 months to build a site that doesn't work, that maths just doesn't add up. You're spending engineering cycles on a brochure site instead of the actual product itself. Becoming a Webflow partner helped us strip most of that out, with a real CMS, a real CDN, proper publishing workflow. Client's team owns the site from day one.
Nice.
The trade-off people imagine that you give up power for speed mostly isn't real anymore. We're embedding React components inside of Webflow when we need to. We're hosting custom JS. We've got proper development workflows. Our GitHub is being deployed to every day. The platform's grown up. The agencies and the dev team, selling it often haven't caught up, but I think that we are trying to push that. And the deeper version of bloated is just very cultural. Like the industry has trained clients to expect long timelines, big invoices, because that's how it's priced itself, huge headcounts, etc. Big offices that warrant those prices. AI is about to take a wrecking ball to all of that, and I'm glad that we came up just before that.
Yeah,
agencies still selling those bloated hours and stuff are going to feel the crunch first, I think.
Totally. And I like the lean approach. Like even I, as a one-person team, can see that sometimes we just spend way too much time on stuff. But how does that lean approach reflect in Shrink Studio's processes team? What does your team look like? And does that approach reflect there anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. So first question in terms of team, we keep it really lean with only seniors. The reason for that is obviously because we're small. I can't, at the moment hire juniors to pin things on, which is unfortunate because I would like to build an agency or a consultancy that can harbor development of junior team members. But right now, because of our size and because of the current market, we have 3 people on a project. They're all extremely senior. They're generally freelance. They've got skin in the game. They've been in it for a long time. I can trust their output. It means that the stuff we come out with is just way more structurally sound, I think. Mm-hmm. And we can really back up our ethos. In terms of services, we don't take the traditional approach of saying we do 100 different things. We focus on 3 buckets. Those buckets are discovery, development, and optimization. Now, discovery, I worked in a product agency for a couple of years, and without discovery, you start to gratuitously add features that just don't aid the end product whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a pretty built out discovery process where we utilize a few frameworks to make sure that what we're deciding on to build is going to be the most valuable and provide the best outcome for the client. Don't get me wrong, there's still room for vanity features in a website, and building a website isn't exactly rocket science. But when it comes to things like rebuilding lead generation flows and form flows and HubSpot flows across like 60 different markets, which we've done for a recent client, discovery goes a long way. Make sure that we have a proper architectural plan that everybody's bought into, from COO to our developers. So yeah, and then obviously development, just simple sprints, keep the sprints nice and simple, week at a time, develop off the backlog, kind of a complicated process. We just build. And then optimization is all about CRO, AEO stuff, and just making sure that we can compound all of their efforts from the builds that we've just done. So everything's about value. Everything's about making sure that there's no bloat to any of it, and stripping away the stuff that just doesn't matter, because these companies that we work with don't have time, So that's it. All the way through. Hopefully there's a nice strand there.
Yeah. I would love to like jump into every bucket, so to speak. But we have to do little intros before we forget. So you are listening to Webflow and Friends podcast. And my name is Janne, I'm your host, and my guest today is Ben Hammond. So Ben is the founder of Shrink Studio. Shrink Studio is a Webflow premium partner based in London. Ben helps venture-backed B2B teams evolve their websites in a lean mindset, as we talked. But before Shrink, Ben worked at agencies like Hex Digital and Crowdform. He also founded Grizzly Bear Brighton, which is now a thing of the past. So Ben, if I remember correctly, Grizzly was more like a creative agency. How did you go from that to Shrink, which is now a bit more technical and Webflow focused?
So I came up in a brand-led creative agency world in Brighton. I had a big focus on editorial design, typography, motion, craft. I loved that world, but I really kept noticing a gap. Brand strong agencies couldn't ship websites fast. They hand over like beautiful Figma designs. 6 months would disappear into a dev process. Meanwhile, dev strong agencies ship sites really quickly, but they looked quite junior or quite juvenile. Typography off, motion terrible, brand sensibility not very good. The gap was the whole opening for the studio that I run now. But in between Grizzly and what I do now, I worked for a product agency that got acquired. So we were building mobile apps, aggressive web apps, internal tools for government organizations, for highly funded scale-ups. And then I went and worked for another agency doing, as a product owner, leading sprints on their flagship project and trying to implement agile process while they were shifting to becoming a product agency. So yeah, I think all of that has led to the opening of this new studio. Or say new, we're now 4 years old. In 2022, it was a pretty simple idea. My design background allows me to have sensibility on the design side. I know how to code now because I'm self-taught, so I can execute on the development side. Webflow helped me bring all of that together. There's nothing in between that doesn't earn its place. Betting on Webflow was a deliberate bet. It meant I could compress design to live timeline from like 6 months to 6 weeks without giving up anything in the crafts. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think my early days being from the seaside and being from Brighton, I had a healthy aversion to bigger agency machinery. So the way that bigger agencies operate, endless decks, account directors who couldn't actually do the work, layers of process designed to justify a rate card. Our process now is deliberately the opposite. Small team, senior people on every project, no billing time for people who aren't actually delivering anything, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I wouldn't change any of it for the world, from being designing menus for a local restaurant all the way through to now we're building some extremely technical lead generation flows for 50 million funded companies. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, it sounds quite wild. But how are your time spent like right now? How much do you do like design, Webflow work, management, meetings? What does your day look like?
Yeah, I tend to be more of an architect now. So I'll do a lot of the technical architecture with our developer that we work with called Pri. Pri's based in London. He's fantastic. He's like a golden chicken. You'll never find another one like him. But my days are like spent doing a lot of sales stuff. I do a lot of outreach. I'm writing content, trying to keep us involved in the Webflow space. I'm trying to build referral connections with other agencies who might be slightly bigger than us. We've got partnerships with other branding studios, copywriting studios, CRO studio. So yeah, my day can be very varied. Sometimes I jump back into design work. It really depends on how lean the project is. But I'm hoping over the next year that I'm probably not going to have to do that, because firstly, there are people that we work with who are way, way better than me. So I want to utilize them, not be the bottleneck, which is what you become as a director.
Yeah, totally. And I'm kind of curious about that cooperation, working with people. When you try to move fast and keep the process lean, what sort of things do you have to tackle? I would imagine that everybody has to be on the same page, and especially if you're like simultaneously working on the same project. Do you have any things that you would like to highlight from that part of the process?
Yeah, communication is absolutely key. Transparency between a team is absolutely key. I've worked with and at studios that, not to name names, but they haven't had that, and there has been some infighting. So we keep everything transparent. We keep all the conversations true, and make sure that everybody's on the same page while we're developing a site. Generally speaking, we've never had any problems thus far, I think, because of that approach. I think, just making sure that people have buy-in as well. We're working with freelancers at the end of the day who are on contract with us. They need as much buy-in as anything else, because they might find a contract that comes along that they want to do more than work with Shrink. So we try and make sure that they have buy-in and make sure that they feel like as much a part of this mission as they can. And I like to think that that's helped us build quite a nice core team of trusted people. And we act like a team. We behave like a team. We do the things that teams do. And we try to make sure that it feels like as much of that environment as possible, while we're still at the stage of a business that doesn't want to hire in-house just yet.
Yeah, I totally get that. Teamwork makes the dream work, and DreamWorks makes movies, or something like that.
Well, absolutely.
But one very detailed question. You mentioned that the client has the ownership of the project. So does that mean that you start the project in the client's like Webflow account and everybody is invited to there, or how does that like specific part work?
No, we build it in our space. As we're an agency, we have obviously got the agency workspace. We build in our space. We set up all of our GitHub repos for their project. Everything is linked through our setup. And then at the end of a project, what we'll do is we'll obviously transfer it, and then we'll provide them the repository as well. If they don't want to host it themselves, we will host that for a small fee, which is usually, not expensive. because you don't have to do much maintenance to GSAP apart from update like the version. So yeah, we tend to do that. And then if they want to go on retainer, that's when we sell them the optimization piece. But the handover always goes into their workspace. So our workspace is just full of resources, not and our own site, not full of client sites. We might duplicate a site every now and then if it has a feature that we really like that got taken away, so that we can like repurpose it and potentially put it on Webflow, made in Webflow. But other than that, everything lives with the client because we want to give them maximum autonomy.
Yeah, obviously. That's cool. You mentioned the optimize buckets. The word bucket somehow stuck in my brain. But the first bucket was the discovery. So does that like include the design? And then there was the middle one, the development. Or how do you structure the design?
The design will go into the development bucket because it really is a time-intensive part of the project, and it all fits in simultaneously with the development. So we categorize the discovery will have things like wireframing, information architecture, copywriting, anything that is structural. And then if we're doing something like a lead generation flow for a client, the discovery will have a quick prototype of what that might look like and where it's going to feed the information. It won't be designed. It will be templated. It will just have like a field and we can say, this has gone here. This has gone here. So yeah, that's how we kind of categorize that. I've got some notes actually here, which are from the upgraded copy on our site, which is going to launch again next week. But yeah, it's more strategic briefs, stakeholder sessions, analysis, positioning. And then we might, depending on the project, we'll try and build like a prioritized roadmap for the client to say, okay, these are the features in your first V1. And then this is what V2, 3, and 4 could look like, depending on what data you get, what's working, what's not working, what priority you need things. Anything from a careers section to a resources section to, changing a footer.
Yeah. I'm always excited to talk about like processes and how people do basically the same things but differently. And you mentioned sprints, so I'd imagine that you kind of structure things around sprints, but are you like strict with the schedules, or are you saying or communicating to the client that, okay, this will take X amount of time and we will see when we get to work on how long it will take?
Yeah, so when we're deep in development, we will stick to sprints. We will stick to quite quick sprints, so they're weekly, and things will get deployed on a Tuesday. So we have a cutoff day on a Monday where we can check things, and then we deploy on a Tuesday. If it is for very fast changes that we can do in a couple of minutes, generally we're extremely flexible. And that is a good thing about being a Webflow partner, right? So we can make those changes extremely fast and we're not holding up anyone. We stick to sprints for bigger features because we need a QA process. The client needs a feedback process. We need to have that 20-minute call with them to say, actually, what do you think of this? Is this right? Or does it need to go back into the next sprint and come back out next week? But it just gives us that buffer so we don't, we eliminate a lot of risk with development. I've been bitten in the past by trying to do things too quickly. And I think having this like boundary is good for us. It's good for the client. It means that they can if they have a ClickUp board and they have a form, when they put requests into their form, what happens is we generally pick it up in the time that we have in that sprint and we'll add it to the backlog and we'll just get it done because, like I say, building websites is not rocket science. So yeah, in answer to your question, we can be very flexible, but I try to add boundaries to eliminate any type of risk because it just helps maintain relationships and develop better products. And I want people to be happy with us, not the opposite.
That's so true. Like everybody wants the project to come along and get done at some point. What about the discovery stuff that you mentioned, that the copywriting is there and all sorts of other things? Are you strict with those timelines?
Yeah, it depends on what the priority for the client is really. I think a lot of the time we don't do some things and we do other things. Like the copywriting we outsource to another partner. I say outsource, we are very transparent and we actually bring them in. And we let them do their thing. They have a general timeline that can often depend on stakeholder involvement. So obviously, if they're trying to write copy from scratch for a whole site, it could take another month. So we might do the discovery to analyze the gap with the copywriting for them to then go away and do the copywriting, and then they'll come back and do the dev after. So yeah, we're quite strict about not doing design without like an idea of content, but we are also the drivers behind trying to structure the information architecture for the site anyways, rather than just say to a client, right, go and do some content, we'll just wait. We'll drive the conversations and try and get the wheels turning by saying, okay, actually, we've assessed the mission of this the site based on the discovery. Here is an idea of what the information architecture might look like to make your life easier when it comes to creating content for this site. So we try and do a lot of the legwork for them, and I think that's what makes us a better kind of dev shop, development agency.
Yeah, nice. And how much do you do like work outside of Webflow, or like custom stuff and those lead flows and so on?
Fair amount. We've done a couple of Next.js sites with Sanity backends. They were a bit larger. They were quite nice. I've done a little bit of Framer. I know that's the anti-Webflow anti-Webflow platform, but we have done a couple of Framer sites, and we've had a couple of clients on retainer for Framer. A lot of custom development work that lives in Webflow but isn't done with Webflow. We build a lot of React bits and bobs. I think the ultimate goal for us is to be not a Webflow studio, but to be a tech consultancy. And to do that, we need to be agnostic. It doesn't mean I haven't, I'm not aware of the bet that I've taken on Webflow, but we're still keen to utilize other platforms at the same time,
Yeah. People are a bit scared or anxious with all the things that is happening with AI and, Webflow in general. Is it like a bad idea to still keep doing just Webflow stuff when there's all sorts of possibilities right next to it and so on? But then there's a lot of possibilities. It's a big jump to just like open your door, so to speak, and start doing all sorts of services and products with AI. So how do you see that thing?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be really intentional with the service lines that you're offering. Like, we're not gratuitously throwing out services for AI. We need to consider whether there's actually a value add, and whether there's actually something that we can offer that's going to make a difference. And ultimately, the goal is a return on investment. I know that sounds like corporate talk, but if it's not making money, it's pointless. So we are very cautious about that. Now, when it comes to AI and its impacts, I understand why people are both scared, but also optimistic. I think it's never happened at this scale before. The opportunities are endless. I think we're in a world at the moment where we can do a lot more and a lot quicker. I think we fall into the danger of potentially thinking that AI or treating AI as an efficiency tool when perhaps we need to start thinking of AI as something to be more effective with. So rather than just, we saved an hour because we didn't have to deploy this code in the same way, I think we need to have a look actually what are the business impacts of utilizing AI and how it can be more effective, not just saving time. Like, what does that look like? I don't have the answers for that, but I've been thinking quite heavily on that topic recently. And I think, it's going to be an interesting couple of years. That being said, I do feel like there's a bit of a bubble that's going to burst because there's the funding of these AI companies is dwindling, and they're all being subsidized by certain governments. So you're looking at an uncertainty of what's going to happen next. And I don't think anyone really can see what's going to happen. Who knows? I'm all for it. We're AI first, or AI. I don't know how would you say it? Not AI first, but like AI adoptive, we utilize
AI
it every day.
positive or something.
AI positive. Yeah, we try and bring it into things intentionally. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it helps us with our code deployment and versioning. And I was able to spin up a boilerplate or a couple of boilerplates on GitHub for projects within half an hour. Rather than what it would have taken me, which is like 2 days before. So yeah, I don't know, it helps. And that means I can start projects a lot quicker and we can get going a lot faster.
Totally. Webflow in itself, it is so like, well, first of all, it's a beautiful tool and simple box to fit in. Like I'll do websites and marketing stuff. And I think that Shrink Studios, like the H1 like headline is clear and nice in a way that, okay, I land on the site and I immediately know if it's for me, like if I'm a venture-backed tech team, B2B startup. So that's clear. And that might be a way to proceed, like just thinking that who you want to serve and think of it that way. Do you have any like concrete use cases or anything like that you'd like to apply AI in the future out of the like efficiency stuff that you are like doing right now? Are there anything that tickles your brain?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment it's I'm working on a few internal tools. So just things to ultimately make our life easier internally. One of the things I'm working on is a scoping mechanism. So I used to scope projects that we use a sheet that is like line items. That line item has team members attributed to it and then spits out a cost for the client. And it's uber transparent. So, people can see how much things cost in real time. That's one thing we try and do. But it became really hard to manage and it takes me ages to put a scope together. So what I've done is I've just turned that spreadsheet into a tool. And that tool I can use to put together a scope for a project a lot quicker. And it does all the formulas. I hate Google Sheets and Excel. Don't give me formulas. I can't stand it. So, being able to build stuff like that to be more efficient in that way. I know that if I am doing scoping a lot quicker, I'm closing deals a lot faster. I'm having those conversations with clients without delay, which, delay is often one of the reasons that people put a pause on projects because it's taken a while to get answers. So yeah, in stuff like that, I feel like that's a good use case. I'll feedback at the end of the year, at the end of the next financial year once I've sent them out. But it's going well so far. That in itself is something I think is quite good.
Yeah. And since you talked about like offers and giving up some like pricing details, we could go towards like the business stuff and sales. First of all, like if you want to call it like niche, the venture-backed B2B teams. How did you find that? You mentioned the gap that you saw with the agencies. Was that just a good fit for the gap, or did you like stumble to it somehow?
Firstly, from a personal aspect, the tech world, not even the tech world, the startup world is so fascinating to me. And I think there are so many amazing startups finding funding every single day. I have an RSS feed that I get that pulls leads into my ClickUp, which we could go over in a minute. But I see funding going to like fantastic ventures. And they're ventures that I personally want to support and work with. And I think it leans into the business ethos. So it's where the diagnosis fits the cleanest, basically. It's where our model works the best. A few things have to be true for our model to work, and they're all true for these teams. We're looking for people who have just raised, whichever that looks like. It can be seed, Series A, Series B. Those are kind of our three brackets. We prefer Series A because they're at a more fundamental time where seeds are probably a little bit smaller, probably don't have as much emphasis on their growth team just yet. The Series A, they have like a growth team, or at least a head of growth in place. They also have budget. All of these teams move fast because runway is finite, positioning shifts quarterly, pivoting happens all the time. Enterprise buyers and next round investors are reading the site, so credibility is not optional. Marketing function within the companies is usually 1 to 3 people who need to ship without engineering. And that one is a killer. If you build a site for a team that they can't update themselves, you've actively made their job harder.
Yeah.
You're losing their money. You know, you look at their internal resource costs skyrocket if you do that. And yeah, we've worked with over 30 of these teams across seed, Series A and Series B. The pattern is pretty consistent. It doesn't really change that much. CTO built the first site because it was the path of least release resistance in a platform that they wanted. At 50 people with a marketing lead trying to ship a campaign every fortnight, that site is a bottleneck. Or there's a previous agency relationship that ran on consultant rates and never really properly handed over. So every change is an invoice, which, you know, like I say, don't have the time or the budget is the budget when you're this small. Every penny is accounted for when you're this size. And yeah, I think the unsexy reality is that for most growth stage B2B businesses, the website is doing 4 jobs. It's credibility for enterprise sales, positioning for your next round of investment. It's demand gen for paid and organic, and it's recruitment for the talent that you want to hire. You know, as you're growing, you're going to need you're going to need to be hiring. So it needs to flex on all 4 of those things. It's not a static brochure site, but it doesn't need to be a massive custom built platform. A properly architected CMS build with the right integrations behind it. Great, that will do the job. And yeah, I think the common pain points that I see on like every intake call are the site looks junior next to the products that they've spent years developing. Marketing can't update copy. None of the integrations are working properly because they're like duct taped together, so no one knows if the data is right. The performance scores are pretty embarrassing for companies that, you know, pitch themselves as leaders, and there's no clear way to add things without building from scratch. So we try and solve all of those problems, and yeah, like I say, it's a pretty common thread through all of them. And it's fun. Startups are fun.
Is it fun if you know that in 6 months you have to do it all over again? Do you ever get tired of the pace of change with those customers?
No, actually. Funny you should say that. So I think like if you're a bootstrapped company, you will probably pivot a lot quicker. We tend to avoid working with bootstrapped companies because it's not our expertise. They need to change a lot faster. However, with a seed or Series A business, the foundation that you've built will allow for a pivot quite easily and quite quickly. So we will probably not have to do that much heavy lifting again for another 2 years, maybe 3, which I think is the ideal timeline for a website anyway, really. We just want them to come to us to help them compound growth, not to revisit the website. The architecture and the way that we set everything up allows for them to go and have like maximum consistency, maximum editability, I guess, over the site with some guardrails, obviously. So if they need to pivot, they can.
Yeah. I want to get to the architecture and frameworks and such, but I mentioned the business side of things, so I need to ask you, where do you get those clients? Do you do like active sales, or do you have a good referral network, or how do you find the clients?
Yeah, so years 1 to 3, it was mostly inbound referrals, word of mouth, Webflow directory for a couple of years, some agencies wanting Webflow specialists. Referrals had been our strongest channel by quite a long way. You know, we worked with a lot of early stage founders who finished a project, raised their next round, recommends us to a friend, and that compounded. So yeah, that's been a strong one for us. But I think over the last couple of months, what I've been doing is working on our financial year 27 planning. And in that is a lot of outbound. So we're trying to shift the percentages quite considerably. So over the last couple of months, what we've done is we've looked at different APIs that we can connect to from databases where we can see how much funding companies have got, whether they match our ICP score, see whether their venture backs, worked with a consultant before. It's an interesting territory. And then I have, like I said, an RSS feed that I scrape all of the European tech news, basically all the funding news from all around the continent. And we pull that into a ClickUp board. It gives an ICP score out of 100. And if it's less than 70, it won't go in. If it's higher than 70, it will go in. And over the last couple of weeks, I've got like 95 companies that I can reach out to. And now it's just outbound. We're doing a lot of outbound. I've built some tools to help assess websites and see if they are AEO ready, see if their structure is sound, see if they're being found online, etc. It's hard, but I think all of that graft is going to pay off. And it's already looking like it's, 3 months into putting that into practice is starting to pay off. And now's the time that we're going to start doubling down on what's working. And it's interesting. We're actually actively hiring a sales development representative at the moment to help me with some outbound.
Cool. Yeah. And it's hard, but just imagine if you get the machine working, if you put X amount of effort into it, you get Y amount of results. That would be so cool. Referrals are awesome, and inbound stuff is great. But if you want to build and grow your company, you kind of need that kind of machine. But have you seen anything that is working? I have tried a couple of times to do some sort of outbound or cold emails or such, and I haven't gotten those to work. So have you seen anything that clearly works at this point?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one because at the moment you're seeing a lot of AI spray and pray kind of outbound happening. Even myself as an agency founder, I get AI generated outbound sent to me every goddamn day. So what is working, and I was talking to my mentor about this yesterday, is the more human approach. Someone can tell if you're being human when you message them. And actually, one of the calls that I've got locked in for next week was an introduction that I just said, "Hey, dude, congrats on the funding. I've had a look at your site. Absolutely love the mission. Where here's a report that I had just spun up. No pressure, keep up the good work."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Can we chat?" And that, and it's not going to work for everyone. Some people might be offended if you said, "Hey, dude." But in that instance, it worked. And, it was something human. It was a different way of approaching it and being like, "Yeah, we think what you're doing is really, really cool. Congrats on the round. And we found some gaps that we want to show you, or we want to show you how good your website is actually doing." Because that also happened. So, yeah.
And you mentioned the AEO stuff. Do you have a tool or something for that too? Obviously, it's top of mind for many marketers and such. So do you have anything for that?
Yeah, we've really lent into AEO. So we have a partner who offers AEO services. He will spin up a report with us. So we'll kind of sit down and just say, "Look, we've got 5 potential companies that we want to pitch this to." Or just show them the importance of it. Sometimes we're just trying to give things without any return. Here's some value. See ya. So we try and send those out, and we're trying to lean into it as much as possible because people are searching very differently now, and we need to be at the forefront of what that looks like.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about your outreach numbers? Because I would imagine that you are doing some quite detailed work, and if you are manually doing those things, the numbers are not as high as a totally automated system.
Probably do about 3 every 3 days or every 2 days, which are people that I've sat and had a look through the press releases. I look at where they're going to spend their funding. So there's often a good indicator if they're growing certain teams, whether they're going to need a website. I look at the mission, does it align with what we want to do? Or is it just a company that we can't really get behind? Because, ultimately it makes the work better if we can align with it. And then look at the founders or the head of product or the head of marketing or whatever, and, try and align with them, see if they've put any content out on LinkedIn, try and be as warm as possible when we get there. And I think because of the prices that we charge, they're reasonable, but they're not expensive. They're not cheap. So they're like, a reasonable level. So, I only need one a week to say, yeah, let's have a chat. And I think that's good for me. I don't want to be spraying and praying for 100 a week, because we're just going to end up with, rubbish, and then we'll get blacklisted on LinkedIn, which I don't want to do, because I'm one of those people that absolutely loves LinkedIn.
That's it's my preferred social media, but I do not love it. It's a weird place.
It can be. It absolutely can be.
Yeah, my business or sales nerd rises up, and I'm getting excited. I should check out my own funnel again. But you mentioned ClickUp a couple of times. You mentioned that it gets you the score, how good of a lead it would be for you. Does it help in any other way, or how do you use the ClickUp tool?
Okay, yeah. So ClickUp is just our project management tool. It's basically the brain of our company. It's where I document the process. It's where we document our development process. It's just got a really nice interface. And then Claude and myself have built the connection to Claude. So it just uses the Claude API to funnel things in. So it's a Claude built cron job, essentially, that, reads online and then pushes to ClickUp and then creates a task. In that task, there is a assessment. So they've done, it's basically, if it can find a URL for the website of that client, or of that lead, sorry, it will run the assessment that we've set up in our tools and then spit out a report for me to look at, which I can then decipher whether, the answers are good enough. And then I can utilize that and send that to a potential lead as a way of a warm intro.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And you mentioned that you will send an email, just a little bit of value, and do with it whatever you want. But have you ever tried recording a Loom video or something like that to add to that?
Yeah, I tell you what does work actually is sometimes is voice notes.
How do you do those with email?
Not on email, on LinkedIn, you can send voice notes. And you can quickly grab people's attention, I think. My only thing with voice notes is I personally hate sending them, but I do know I have seen some decent results, and I think you can spin up something that's going to grab someone's attention very fast if you are speaking to them. A lot of people you'll find are quite curious, and they'll want to open it. So,
I need to try those voice notes.
Yeah, I do. In terms of Loom, I've done a couple of Looms. Yeah, I think voice notes or just a direct message is the way to go.
Yeah. The video is a bit much for a first email, maybe. It's a lot to expect someone to watch a full video, even though it's personal and such. But yeah, it might be quite much compared to a voice note.
Yeah, don't put blockers in your own way. Try and make it as easy as possible is my advice.
Yeah. Okay, anything about the sales topic or such, or should we go towards the frameworks and all the Webflow stuff?
Yeah, let's chat about frameworks. Yeah, let's do that. 100%.
Yeah, bring it on. What's Shrink's favorite framework? What do you use?
Yeah, so I am personally a diehard MAST guy.
Okay.
Because MAST uses a dry approach. It's super light, right? So it's generally, a lot easier to spin something up quite quickly as well. What I would say is that frameworks are definitely starting points, not religion. is a very sticky point in the sphere. You can't knock what FinSuite have done. It's great. They were the first to do it. You got the small, medium, large. You got Saddle. You got Lumos, MAST. It lowered the barrier to entry having those, which is good. And it has allowed people to become better developers very quickly. But yeah, the risk is that you start designing around the conventions of the framework rather than the project needs. So rigid framework adherence also makes handovers worse because client's team has to learn the framework before they can edit anything. So with what we do is we have a boilerplate of MAST, which we have reskinned to be a shrink clonable. We set up every site from that. It links to our GitHub. So sorry, Corey, but I've taken all the code from your GitHub and put them into ours. But that's what open source is for. And yeah, we have a shrink boilerplate that works the same. It's been slightly developed on. We utilize that and then change it depending on the client. And then we use components first, which is harder when you're doing CMS pages, but that's fine because it's managed by the CMS. But we try and stick to component first because it is a lot easier to manage. And most of the time we will do closed components. It'll be a section and then a closed component. And then inside that is the MAST framework. So row, column, content wrap, etc. And then we'll just, we have a class system that we use ourselves, which is based off the back of MAST to add custom things, like section _ whatever it is _ wrapper. So yeah, that was the better way to go for us, I think.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that while it was very, very useful to have the boilerplate of rows and columns and et cetera, only one of our clients out of 20 used the columns. They were like,
yeah,
this doesn't work for me.
That puzzles me a bit. I can see how everybody, including me, is excited about the possibility of building with components, like the open components. But it is still hard. If you want the client to actually use those, you have to train them, you have to do documentation, and then a couple of months go by and they forget everything and they forget the documentation and they are asking, how about those closed components? So
I think a lot of the time as well, when you've got you should always assess the use case of what a client is, using the website for. Majority of the time, if you're using it as a huge growth engine or a content engine, you're doing lead generation forms, which you can do via the CMS, success pages, which you can do via the CMS, campaign pages, CMS. You can see where I'm going with this, right? So, and then you can spin up landing pages, which you can do with a template. And you can help them sort out their A/B testing. So a lot of the time, they're not using the entire component batch that you've created for them. They're using the fields in the CMS to spin up really quick pages for, like I say, like forms, which they can UTM track because the UTMs are in the CMS. So, we just lean quite heavily on that. And I think with the next gen CMS rollout, it's going to be even more powerful. So I'm excited for that to see the impact. But yeah.
The CMS, that's great too, but obviously it's more visual to use those components. If you are in the CMS part of the Webflow, you have all the fields there, and then you have the canvas editing, but you can get mixed or puzzled with those two. And I'm thinking the CMS might right now be easier to use as you
absolutely
mentioned.
And it depends on the client as well, right? If you got a marketing executive who's relatively new, they're going to want to fill in fields and make it really easy for themselves. And they're not a designer and they don't want to be a designer. So that's why they're as easy as humanly possible. And we have the tools to give that to them and need to remember that we need to make it as easy as humanly possible for them to build what they need.
And all the AI stuff like connectors and MCPs work really well with CMS right now already. So that's a handy thing. But I'm just wondering if the build mode or the editing with components could be somehow easier so that if there was a good robust open component system, that it would be actually usable for the client who is not that tech savvy or hasn't used Webflow so much. Do you see that that could be a possibility in the future if the build mode was somehow revamped?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So the best example of this is Alessia from Code and Wonder, very good friend of mine. She has developed Blocks, which is the framework that she uses. That is the most client-friendly framework for the build modes that I've seen. If you haven't, for anybody who's going to listen to this, if you haven't used it, do go and check it out. Entire mindset with that was like, how can I make this easier for the user, not the developer? Like, you know, we know how to build Webflow. Like, we know how to dev sites. We need the client to have easy handover, and that's what Blocks does. So yeah, that is a good example of exactly that.
Yeah, the framework or the components and all the naming around it and all the logic around it is one thing, but I'm like thinking a step ahead, like if like Webflow itself could like redesign the build mode somehow. I do not know how it looks like, but what if there would be more like dedicated UI for the build mode, like the legacy editor in a sense, but build around components? Do you see that? Could that happen?
Potentially. I do wonder. I think, you know, if you go to WordPress and you look at any of the builders, say like the Divi builder or I can't remember what the other one was called.
Elementor.
That's the one, Elementor. They're all done in the builder in the same view. So I don't know. I couldn't imagine what that would look like unless they span up like a completely different tool for it. But I'm not sure they're going to do that after basically bringing build mode into the designer quite recently. So yeah, I wonder. That would be an interesting prospect to think about, because, you know, what's their mission? It's to give marketing teams and everyone development superpowers. So who knows? Maybe they are working on something.
Maybe. Or there will be a absolutely bungless AI feature that can use components and you will just prompt it to use those components. That would be awesome.
Yeah, the MCP obviously can use components now. I haven't used it, but I use the MCP every day for other things. Apparently it can use components to build pages now if you train it properly.
I should take another look at the MCP. I tried it a couple of months ago, so now there's updates and yeah, everybody should take another look. But yeah, you are right. They are probably not going to redesign it, but maybe with a little bit of like features and logic, if we could like declare or say that this component slot will only take these components or something like that. So there would be more guardrails. Maybe something like that could make it easier and more usable.
Definitely. I mean, I believe in Webflow get a lot of slack online. I believe in Alan and I believe in his team and I believe in their mission and Rachel, you know, as the CPO. I believe in what they're doing. I think that I know what they're doing. I would just trust them. You know, there's workarounds for everything. We, you know, can't expect this platform to do everything under the sun. It is already allowing us to build websites that are beyond anything that any of us could ever imagine before, right? So we're already winning.
Yeah,
like, don't knock it while you literally have like the best thing with you.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful too. I have talked with some Webflow folks. The latest was Nathan from Webflow. He had lots of good takes. People were excited about that episode. And yeah, I'm hopeful there will be proper AI. I'm sure of that. And there are stuff that Webflow can do that these vibe coding platforms cannot do. But that's the thing, like they are like approaching things differently. Like obviously Webflow is great for marketing sites, but with Lovable and such, you can do a marketing site, but you can do all sorts of other things. And I'm not like, again, sure if the world is totally open and you can do whatever you want. That's a big product to build.
Part of me thinks like just because you can build a product doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Like just because you can build an app builder doesn't mean you should. I'm sympathetic towards vibe coding. I think the label of vibe coding is dismissive. The underlying shift is very real. But the bar of can build software has significantly dropped. So feature, not a problem, but it is like, it is a real thing. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting shift. It's a very interesting shift.
Totally.
It's the most interesting thing happening in the industry right now. Let's be honest. Like it is a huge shift.
Are you going to build products or software for clients with all those tools, or are you already doing that?
We've already done a couple of things. We built a campaign dashboard for UTM tracking for a client. It was very simple. Again, it's just about being intentional with it. Like, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think that's where Webflow have actually been quite good, is they're not building AI features for the sake of AI features. They've like the new AEO stuff that's coming to enterprise. Yes, I know that's going to enterprise first, but it will eventually come to everyone else. That is a huge, amazing way of utilizing AI and leaning into the AEO playground as well. So stay intentional.
Yeah, Webflow is going big on the AEO stuff, and I think that's a good move. Every marketer is almost like panicking right now. What is going on with the search results and traffic and so on? But as in the last episode I did with Mason Paul, I like hate SEO already because it's so fuzzy, and now AEO, like firstly, like where do we even get the data on how much like traffic comes from which questions and which answers and so on. So how do you cope with the AEO fuzziness or the landscape shifting?
Personally, I lean into every single change. I'm really progressive when it comes to that. I don't have much skepticism when it comes to we call it naivety, right? But I'm not massively skeptical. I only see the opportunity. That might be a negative in some aspects, but I see it as an interesting and an amazing tool to lean into. I think the landscape's changed already hugely, and will continue to change. And it's something that we need to be ready for. And I keep going back to this word intentional, but intentional about how we serve the industry, with AI and in a post-AI world.
Yeah. And do clients like ask about the AEO stuff? You mentioned that that's kind of a part of the optimized bucket. Am I right? Yeah, that was the bucket.
Yeah, a little bit. We've had a few who have brought it up. It's not on a lot of people's radar. I think they're like, I want to be seen on ChatGPT, but I don't understand, and we're not ready to invest in that just yet. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. We will pitch them and say, what do you think about this? You're not being found online in these places. You've got no citations or credits over here. And they'll take that away and think about it, and it's food for thought. But for a lot of people, getting the buyer in from the people that hold the wallet is a lot harder at the moment. So we're doing what we can, but yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, totally. Obviously, the people who see that their like SEO rankings are shrinking, they might be onto it and like trying to find new traffic sources. But yeah, it's kind of like marketers know that that's a thing, but there are not too much of those best practices yet. So
yeah,
hopefully
definitely
something will form in the future.
We're building like a boilerplate for how to implement best AEO practices from the beginning of a site build. And honestly, at the moment, it's just doing things like LLM.txt files, proper schema, FAQs, like making sure the content is like answering the questions that people are asking with natural language now, that kind of stuff. But who knows? We don't really know what it looks like yet. It's just a really interesting, fun thing to do.
Totally. And since you mentioned the boilerplate again, I want to take us back to the framework stuff. all those things. I forgot to ask you, like, you have your own version of MAST, and what sort of things have you added there? Are there like page templates or something content-wise, and something maybe technical? You mentioned some utility classes. What's there that MAST clonable in itself doesn't have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've added some new components. They're things from validated forms. So we have form validation built into the framework that we give to clients. That's because of spam issues and bot issues, obviously. So we built that in. It's quite advanced. We've got page transitions. So essentially, we have a way to create a page transition. Has a certain way of writing the JavaScripts before you put it back into the bundle to allow for the page transitions to properly work. We have some of FinSuite's, or we've repurposed some of FinSuite's open source JavaScript. So things like copy to clipboard, like we've turned that into a button, right? So, because I worked out that a lot of email links weren't opening on people's devices because they've got ad blockers. So we did copy to clipboard instead because it's a safer way of getting emails from websites. What else? We've done a few other things. Tables of contents. That's like a standards that comes with our sites. Yeah, just useful things that come up all the time. They're just, really simple things that you wouldn't think off the top of your head until you hit that page. But we try and use all of them. If they're not used, obviously we just remove them from the bundle. There's also a JavaScript snippet that we put in so that you don't have to set the visibility on a CMS page. So if it will automatically hide a section if the content is empty. Because sometimes we get clients who forget to do that. So we've done that as well. Although the new visibility settings on Webflow are fantastic. So we might rework that one. But there's a few things, cookie consent, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Lists, filtering, blah, blah, blah.
Do you have some CMS collections there already, like blogs and such?
Yeah, we keep a blog one and then a blog categories, and that's it. And then we just build everything else from scratch.
Yeah. There's always the balance that you kind of want to add to it, but then if you end up deleting a bunch of stuff, oftentimes, like, where's the golden balance? Golden road
as well.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as well, we build in UTM tracking sometimes from scratch. So we have a boilerplate again, or a template, I guess, for how a CMS collection should look for UTM tracking. So if a client is going to do that, they'll be able to do that. It's working really well. Just means there's less setup time to get going, and it means that we can deliver like real links to a client a lot quicker for them to see the website that is being built for them. Gives them more confidence, makes them happier.
Yeah,
makes me happier.
You've mentioned the UTM tracking a couple of times, so walk me through, how does that like work? Do you have some sort of like automation that it automatically provides the links that has those parameters in the link, or what does it do?
Yeah, essentially what we do is obviously we'll help a client set up their Google Tag Manager and their Google Analytics, and we use PostHog as well, which is for internal use, so that we can keep an eye on like how things are working. Essentially what we do is we create a collection called UTM campaigns. That collection in it has a data source, it has a medium, it has a couple of other bits in it, and the client can go in and create their campaign. So they can go in and they can put the medium, they can put where it's coming from, they can put like, is it from a QR code or a link on a site? Then what they do is they go on their dashboard, which we built, and on the dashboard they can copy the URL. It uses some clever JS. It's just nice, simple 2 snippets to copy a URL, put that into your URL bar, and it will take you to the correct UTM page, which they can then use wherever they go. It's a nice simple one, but it just means that You can do tracking and measurement straight off the bat, especially when you've got like a greenfield site, like brand new website that's never done anything like this before. It's really helpful. And, we pin our successful websites and our process on being able to deliver real data. So not doing that would go against, going against that. So the clients love it. They're happy.
Yeah. Since we're on the topic of data, you must love like all the cookie regulations and pop-ups and such. So how do you manage those? And do you have to explain that, okay, this is not the full picture? Or do you have a workaround, something server side or anything about those?
Yeah, we're in the middle of building something a bit more substantial for this. I've used services in the past and like the FinSuite option. So yeah, generally what we'll do is we'll get them to use something like Cookie Yes out the box, because I just know that if it's out the box, nothing's going to be wrong with it. We're not going to have to take any liability for things not working. Cookie Yes has always been our best option, but in situations where they need something more custom, we're looking at building something that we can just use out the box ourselves. So hopefully in the next year we'll have that, fingers crossed.
Like, do you mean like your own cookie solution or something?
Yeah, our own cookie solution with how to set it up in GTM and make sure that it's completely above board and legit.
Yeah, I gotta say, this might turn into a rant, but the cookie consent stuff is the part of my work that I hate the most. Like, I hate the fact that we have to do a pop-up for every site. Like, that is not in no way like a good way to handle the consents and such. So there must be a better way somehow, but just for the regulation, it is what it is right now. And hopefully someday we will get something better. And the time of cookie consent pop-ups will be in the past. I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, sucks for us being European. Although they have to use it in California as well. California has a cookie consent.
And just imagine if you are in the States and you're not used to building those pop-ups, and then one client needs to have it because they have a huge audience in Europe. So that would be quite painful too. So I don't know. Yeah, that's just a gripe of mine.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. They're fun things that we need to find workarounds for, and the quicker we can develop something that we can just plug in and play, the better.
Yeah, totally. Okay, at some point I need to let you go, but we could visit quickly the topic of Webflow community before we end. Are you an active part of your local community? I know that London has quite active community. Have you been into the meetups?
Yeah, I like to think I'm an active part of the community. I go to every month at the London meetup. I've been to, I think, 4 Webflow comps now. I have spent a significant portion of my time trying to build relationships with people in the space who, to be honest with you, have become friends of mine outside of work now. So they're like friends of mine outside of Webflows. I can speak very highly of Dan Foster from Make Build and Alessia Sannazzaro from Codemundo, who have become 2 of like my close friends. We do a lot of stuff outside of work. We go to the pub a fair amount, and they're a great support network for me. I've got like Joe Murray from Funk, who's become a really good pal. Speak to a lot of the American guys, Jordan from Crew, big legend. So yeah, it's paid off being a part of it. It doesn't directly like to getting work. It's just a great community to be a part of, where you're surrounded by knowledge and just amazing people. Most of the people that I've met have just been bloody wonderful. Yeah. I feel very, very, very fortunate to be a part of that, and to be building an agency within that community and that space is very special.
Yeah, I'm a bit envious because you guys have was it like monthly meetup? in London. So that's awesome. I have seen that you also live stream the talk, so that's great too.
You'll have to come over. It's good fun.
Oh yeah, I'll try to leave my little country at some point. I'm not able to make it to Webflow Conf, but I have been thinking that I should get to some events. Like there's also an event, I guess it just happened, but Uroš Mikić, the Flow Ninja guys, have the
Flow Conf. Yeah,
Flow Conf, yeah, in Serbia. So that's one. And
trying to get a last minute ticket to that. I think I love those guys over in the Central Europe. They're all doing wicked things, and I bumped into a lot of them in New York, and we had some nice, interesting conversations. And obviously shared over a beer, which was lovely. Keen to get to it. If I can make my way over to Serbia in May, I will. You might see me there.
It takes time, and you're wondering before you go that should I spend my time and money to this, but afterward it's always like I need to do this more often. Like it's so
absolutely
rewarding.
It's so rewarding. Cool. It's so rewarding, and people are just great. You know, we're so lucky to have such a global community. You know, like I can't think of many other industries where they get to share this amazing international world, and it's quite brilliant.
Oh, totally. Okay, there's one last section at the end, but before that, if people want to check you out, follow you, maybe even contact you, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier on, I love LinkedIn, so please hit me up there. You can find me just under Ben Hammond. Find us at shrink.studio. It's the domain. You'll see lots of improvements coming to our website over the next few weeks, thanks to our little CRO sprint that we've done internally. And just keep an eye out. We're trying to build a better relationship with Webflow. Now we've spent a few years in the space. I want to start being more of an active community provider rather than a passive member. I think so. We're going to try and think of ways that we can maybe host some events and do some other bits.
Nice.
So just hit me up. I love meeting everyone. It gives me an opportunity to travel and hook up with people at all the different events that we go to. Yeah, go find me. Go find me on LinkedIn.
Nice. And I will obviously put all the links in the description. But yeah, the last section for the dedicated listeners. Do you have any idea what it is about?
I haven't. Let's go.
Beautiful. So this is a funny little and maybe a bit weird Finnish section at the end. So what follows is that I will give you a Finnish saying. I will translate that to English, and your job is to guess what it is about and what it means, basically. So are you ready for your saying?
Yeah, let's do it.
So firstly, in Finnish, it is suksi kuuseen. And straight translation, word to word, is go ski into a spruce, like spruce as a tree. So what does it mean if I say to you, go ski into a spruce?
So go ski into a tree.
Yeah.
Wow. Something about, I guess, like, I don't know, just go head first into your ambitions.
Oh, that's beautifully positive way to look at this. No, it's not to correct this context. So yeah,
I said I'm not a skeptic. That's where that came from.
That's true. Yeah, this is quite simple. It just means go away. Or
nice.
You could like translate that like maybe fuck off or something like that. Not with any swear words, but similar meaning. So just go ski into a spruce.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, Ben, this has been a blast. Thanks so much for being a guest. And for all the listeners and watchers, we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you so much.